video for fiscal policy for chapter 13. So what fiscal policy, expansionary policy, contractionary policy, government intervention. So let's get started. Basically, what fiscal policy is it's a tool for government to correct fluctuations in the economy, right? Basically, aggregate demand equals consumption spending, investment spending, government spending, and net exports. And government has essentially, it can change its own spending, and it can indirectly affect the consumption spending and investment spending by lowering taxes or increasing taxes, right? Or by giving people stimulus packages. Essentially, like when you, because of the income effect, when people have more money to spend, they either consume or invest, and that basically increases or decreases aggregate demand, right? So basically, fiscal policy is whether government is increasing taxation, decreasing taxation, or changing its spending in order to basically speed up, right, boost the economy, or slow it down, right, when there's an inflation gap, to slow it down. So fiscal policy can either be expansionary or contractionary. Basically, when you increase government spending and when you decrease taxes, right, which increases income, which increases consumption and investment spending, the aggregate demand increases, right? And when you do the opposite of this, when you decrease government spending and when you increase taxes, basically aggregate demand decreases. And why government would want to do this is it's basically in order to control the boom and bust cycle, right? In all economies, in modern economies, all industrialized economies, I should say, there's this thing called boom and bust cycle, and there are also some outside factors, some various events that can affect the supply, affect demand, and in order to basically control the economy, in order to, I guess, control people's spending habits and control whether the economy is booming or whether it's shrinking, government uses the fiscal policy, right? And right here, actually, I want to give some amazing examples using paint tool, right? So let's go back to 2008, right? In 2008, there was a Great Recession, right? And during the Great Recession, what happened basically was right before recession. Let's I can actually make this a line. Yeah. This right here. This is the price and production. Whoop. That's supply and demand. And basically, right before 2008, there was this what people call a bubble, right? Basically, the economy, there was an inflationary gap, right? And what that means is essentially, this is the aggregate demand, this is the short-term aggregate supply, and this is the long-term supply, right? And basically, there was this inflationary gap. Let's say, let me change this. Inflationary gap. That basically meant that the economy was growing too much, right? It was the GDP was above its potential, right? And in 2008, when this bubble finally burst, what happened was a recession, right? Not a depression, but a recession. And what the American government did, or what the Obama administration did, is they passed this act called American Recovery and Reinvestment Act, right? It was this big package, I guess. It was a stimulus bill that put into the economy $800 billion, right? The 60% of this was in government spending, and that was in basically building roads, building infrastructure, stuff like that, and 40% was in tax cuts, right? And what this essentially did is it changed aggregate demand, it increased aggregate demand, and essentially made it so that the essentially it stabilized the economy faster, right? The reason many economists believe that the reason we say the Great Recession was a Great Recession instead of a Great Depression is because of this stimulus package, the stimulus bill, I should say. And essentially, the person who came up with this idea of fiscal policies, and when in a recession you should be doing expansionary fiscal policy, right? In order to speed up this correction process, you should be pursuing expansionary fiscal policy, and when you're in a boom, or when you're in a instead of boom, I should say inflationary gap, you should pursue uh, contractionary fiscal policy. Basically, the person who came up with this was John Maynard Keynes. Uh, this is his name, Keynes, last name. And basically, this is what the American government did, right? And uh, now many economists argue, right, whether this was the right thing, whether market could correct itself. Like libertarian economists say, oh, the market could correct itself. More classical libertarians, right, or classical liberals, uh, they say the government intervention helps the market correct itself. And how can we know like which one's right? And we can essentially look at other economies during the same time and what policies they followed, right? And during 2008, this is basically what the American economy did, right? The American government, we we followed the expansionary fiscal policy and tried to get economy back on track. In Europe, however, they instead followed a contractionary economic policy, right? They tried to raise taxes and in order to reduce government debt. And what that did is, since 2008, the U.S. economy has been growing about 2.5% per year, right? Until COVID, I guess. It has been growing about 2.5% per year. And the European economy, let's put a plus here, the European economy has been shrinking about 1% per year, right? And the numbers on the unemployment uh, change by country to country, but in all of Europe, the basically on average, the unemployment rate also rose. It rose by 16%, right? Let me make the percent, 16%, right? Let me clear off this. Oh, now another thing that I wanna, another example that I wanna give on this is, well, before that example, actually, let me talk about basically what if we didn't do anything, right? And what would happen in that case if we don't do anything, if the government doesn't intervene in the market? Market is 100% going to correct itself, right? Because when, let's say, when there's a recession, what's going to happen? Basically, there's a recession, so let me draw that uh, right here. Let's say the long-term aggregate supply is over here, right? There's a recession. What's going to happen is wages, first the wages are going to go down, right? Wages go down. Then this means, oh, okay, when the wages go down, that means the materials are easier to produce, so cost goes down. And after that, aggregate supply increases. So when all of this happens, the economy essentially corrects itself, right? So basically this is a given, right? The economy will always correct itself. But the main problem is this whole ordeal, it takes time. Right? It takes time for wages to go down. It takes time for people to get fired, I guess. It takes time to cost of making business operations to decrease, and it takes time for supply to increase, for new businesses to enter the market instead of the failing ones, right? Basically, what fiscal policy does is we speed up this process and we try to get people to uh, or if not speed up this process, basically reduce the effects of this process, right? We give people more income, right? We cut their taxes. They have quote unquote more wages. Basically cost, all of these effects, they are not as extreme. They're basically reduced, and that means the economy is a little bit more stable. Now there are times, basically, when we pursue fiscal policy, there's also a delay, right? It takes time for fiscal policy to actually take effect and reach the economy, help the economy, right? And because of this, sometimes this fiscal policy can maybe take us out of the recession, but grow the economy a bit too much and create an inflationary gap, or do the opposite thing, right? Because uh, many people, for example, not I guess some economists say that the 2008 uh, problem, the 2008 recession was actually caused by government spending, right? By through expansionary policies or uh, bad decisions regarding monetary policy, right? And maybe that is the case. Maybe if government had not been intervening in the market in the first place, the recession, the 2008 recession, would never even happen, right? But there's also a problem with that, right? I'm a libertarian myself, but there's a big problem. Let me say that, and the problem is, let me delete all of this again.